share that. But about me, yeah, I work at Northumbria University as the lead chaplain, as people say, and I've been a green Christian since before I was a Christian, so which was something that happened in my teenage years. Part of the kind of environmental concern was part of what brought me to faith, I think. So there's a few decades worth of that going on, but I've not always had it as such a central focus of my discipleship, as has been happening more recently. So I'll leave it at that, because I don't think I want to say any more than that at this point.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll see if I can share my screen, or the bit of the screen that I need to. Let's see if I'm co-host. Yeah. Right, let me find the right bit. If it'll let me. Oh my goodness, there's such a lot of, I've got such a lot of tabs open and none of them seem to be the right one. Excuse me just a moment. Right, let's try that again. I'm looking for the one that's got Mentimeter on it. There it is. Okay, so I'm hoping that most of you will now be able to see that I've got. I'm afraid you'll have my tabs on it, because I think I may have to keep it open in such a way that I can access other bits of the screen. So hopefully, give me a thumbs up if you can see what I've just shared there. That's good, excellent. That's making me feel a bit more confident. Thank you. So that's what I'm calling it, Still Sitting Among the Ashes. And you may remember last time we talked about it in terms of what happened to Job, and he ended up sitting among the ashes of everything having fallen apart in his life. So what are we about today? Well, let's begin with some prayer. By wisdom, God founds the earth.
By
understanding, God upholds the heavens. By God's knowledge, the deeps opened up,
and the clouds dropped dew.
And it's by way of a little scriptural thing which has been in the, you'll see how this becomes relevant a bit later on. It's a verse from Psalm 56, where the psalmist says to God, "You have counted up my groaning, put my tears into your bottle. Are they not written in your book?" So for our time together, Spirit of God, brood over our conversing.
Word of God, splice wholeness into our understanding.
Source of all being, make over our knowing.
And renew us in our growing.
So in what we'll do over the next few minutes or so, let's remember that we're listening to one another at various points. So please listen to understand. Please keep confidences, and please help others to participate. So those are the kind of cardinal values, as it were, of what we do. So what I hope we're going to do tonight is we're going to discuss, and we're going to be using some interactive tech. Those of you who were at the previous session I led, we'll remember Mentimeter and say a bit more about that in a moment, and we're going to use it again. We're going to recall a bit of our learning about grief and lament carried over from last time. We're going to consider what helps us and perhaps others to share lament. And a bigger part of things, I hope, will be to begin to plan lamentary actions, if you like. So I hope that at the end of it, you'll feel able to begin to plan how to do something that helps people to lament together. So a bit of practical prep. Some of you will be familiar with this, but in case you haven't used Mentimeter before, if you look at the top of this slide, you'll see a bit of an instruction there. So in another browser tab or on another device, perhaps a phone or a tablet, that often works even better. Go to www.menti.com, and there's a code there for you to use when you get to there, and that will give you access, when it comes to it, to the interactive bits and pieces, and those interactions will show up on the screen you're currently looking at for this slide. So you'll need to be able to access both windows, as it were. I hope that makes enough sense, and all being well, you can kind of do that in the background while we just go into the next couple of minutes. So, from the last time we met, you may remember I encourage people to share reactions to and our responses that we first start to have when we became aware of the climate crisis in its various manifestations. And there were loads and loads and loads of wonderful words, some of them very moving, and I've had the hard job of trying to boil them down into a smaller number, really, to let you have a look at there. So I hope I've not left out anything significant by trying to summarize them in this way and give a synopsis of those responses. Just invite you to, if you're not already looking over them, have a look over them now, and I'll give you 10 or 20 seconds just to read through them. Okay, we'll come back to those in a minute or two, but before we do, I'd like to remind us about what lament involves. And again, we looked at this last time, but this is picking out just a couple of the things that we noticed and I shared particularly last time. So, and this will be guidance for us as we go through it. Naming the losses and harms, and you see that in the Psalms, that the psalmists present before God what it is that they're finding difficult, and they're lamenting. And when we name losses and harms, that allows ourselves often to recognize the griefs by giving voice to them. It allows us to discover and form solidarity when we do it in community with other people. And it enables us to live with or against the losses and harms that we're lamenting. And for us as Christians, particularly, these things involve us being open before God in honest prayer. Not all of church life encourages us to be honest in prayer. So this is one thing where we need to take that seriously. For our purposes tonight, I want us particularly to focus on the naming of the losses and harms before God. And in doing that, beginning to find and form a sense of strength and solidarity. Those are the big things that are in my mind tonight. So this list should look familiar. It was the one we saw just a few minutes ago. And I'd like you to do a bit more with it this time. So I'd like you to have a look at that and with the thought about which of these resonates for you at the moment, which grabs you, which seems most to name something that you can identify with. So if you could choose one or two of those words in that way, in a few moments we'll start to work with them a bit. If it helps you to note them down, do. Okay, I'm going to move us on. So use your Mentimeter thing. I hope maybe you've even got it ready already, but if not, give you a minute, a few seconds more to do that. So open a separate browser or open on another device. Write a line or two to express whichever reactions you'll choose. I think will come up, I hope, in a moment. And post your words to share. They'll be anonymous. So the idea is to expand not just having a word, but maybe writing a phrase of prayer, or at least opening the feeling up to God. So you're writing your own line of lament, as it were. And you can then see them appearing and maybe pray some of them. So hopefully now you're in a position to do that.
Verse 6, 6.
So I suspect that probably that's most of them, but if you're still writing, you've still got a few moments to do that. And I hope that many of you have been able to carry on reading some of these through. The reason why I've encouraged us to do this is sometimes it can be helpful to be writing things like this and turning them into prayers that maybe not only you but other people can use, maybe not in the raw form like you've got them here, maybe turning them into part of a litany or something like that, where there can be a line said and a response that draws people together. But these kinds of phrases may well be the kinds of phrases that could seed that, and by giving expression to your own lament, you may well be giving words to other people for them to be able to express a lament as well. So please do kind of consider it in that way, and I will collect these together, and if anyone does want to have a copy of them, I'm happy to make them further available, because they've been made given anonymously. That's the case. If for any reason your phrase is up there and you really don't want it to be kind of seen more lastingly, then do have a word with me and I will make sure it doesn't get passed on. So I'll move us on from there into the next thing. So we've thought about words there and how those can be then become part of expressing lament for ourselves and for others a little bit, and how the kind of phrases we come up there can be the seed of litanies or other kinds of prayer to do that. I'd like us to think about what I'm calling active prayer now, which is prayer where we use more than our vocal tract and our mind, but we also use more of our body, possibly our whole body, in doing that. And this can show up in rituals, in ceremonies, as well as other things. Oh, you'll get to see in just a moment. So some ideas about what active prayer could involve. And these are here. I'm just going to share these so that you can get a sense of the kinds of things that might be involved. It's not meant to be definitive or exhaustive. So funeral processions. This was as mentioned in the last session that I was leading, and someone mentioned the Red Brigade and dressing all in red and kind of having a funeral procession, which was very dramatic, but actually quite moving as well, and gave sort of expression to something important. Something I've used about in a service of lament before is the idea of symbolic tears in bottles, hence the thing from Psalm 56 earlier. And you can if you've got eyedroppers or even something that's wide enough to put a finger in, you can drop little drops of water representing tears onto, say, cloth, or perhaps streak them on your own cheek or something like that as an active prayer of expression of lament. And that could go along with words that are said or images that are shared. You could adapt the idea of ashing from Ash Wednesday, given the title to this session about still sitting among the ashes, and we can readily explore the imagery of ashes and perhaps connect that with various things. A warming world, forest fires, things like that come readily to mind. Someone was talking about the idea of laments being an analogy with composting grief. So how about taking that image and writing laments onto something that is compostable and burying them, for example. And something from the Bible, and is still carried out by Jewish people today, of when there is a grief, to tear cloth. Tearing their clothing was what you get when you read in the Hebrew scriptures, and it's sanitized a bit by a lot of modern Jews. There's a little tear of a piece of clothing, sometimes specially made for the occasion, as it were. But maybe there's something in that we could do. So those are just some of the ideas about kind of active prayers that can help us to give expression to grief and lament, and could go alongside other things that we do, words or images, as I say. So I hope that those kind of ideas might be helpful in thinking about it. But as I say, they're not exhaustive. They're just some things I've been thinking about. So now I'd like us to go out into breakout groups for hopefully something